Welcome into episode number dose of the Mavs Pulse Podcast. We have named it. Shout out to you guys. Shout out to Grant. Shout out to everyone in our lives to help us name it. Hopefully you guys enjoy. Let us know in the comments what you think of the name. Be the heartbeat of the Dallas Mavericks all season long. Grant Afseth and Blake Elliott here with you today. Grant actually goes to all 82 basketball games for the Dallas Mavericks, so he will be the one and only beat reporter and reporter in general that is out there covering the team. So if you want access like none other, this is the pod to subscribe to. We'll be posting videos every Monday and Thursday. But enough of the boring stuff. You guys want to know what happened. Mavs-Lakers final preseason game. The Mavs finished 3-1 in the preseason. Not the most inspiring preseason. We'll get into some of the pros and cons here in a second, but I kind of just want your initial takeaways, Grant, from that Mavs-Lakers game. They do end up getting the win. They win by 20-some-odd points to go on a 37-8 run in the fourth quarter against the guys that might not even make the roster. Your initial takeaway from Mavs-Lakers.
Yeah, I think anytime you're looking at preseason, you can start with health. They came out without any new injuries. Also, Anthony Davis is continuing to ramp up before the regular season starts. He played 32 minutes, treated it like a normal game, if you will. And, that's always positive to see from a player that's going to be relied on so heavily going into the season, coming off a surgery that he had in the offseason. So I think those are the two pretty easy, basic ones right off the rip. But I think getting more to the actual game flow and just, the execution of what happened, last night, I would say probably the first half was definitely, there were some struggles there offensively. I think they weren't necessarily getting the flow they were looking for offensively, with this new system under Jay Triano. I think sometimes they get caught up in playing a little too stagnant, hunting mismatches instead of keeping the ball moving. Of course, you want to capitalize on having those, mismatches when you have them, but you got to still create that flow and those advantages out of it too. But I think 37-8 in the fourth quarter, that was really the big, swing for Dallas. They were trailing by double figures early, and then that big run, in the fourth quarter, made it a double figure, just pretty substantial blowout victory. Of course, the Lakers without Luka, without quite a few key players, they gradually played less and less of their key players as the game went on, especially after halftime. So that's really where you started to see the Mavericks start to take advantage. So first half, more of the meaningful, players were on the floor more consistently. A bit of a struggle there. They allowed 66 points total.
Ugh.
And 53, for the Mavs. It was solid first quarter with 32 points, but we're held to 21 in that second quarter. So definitely a lot you can kind of dig into from that game, and just, the way to end preseason going into this regular season with, them going with the starting lineup for the second straight game of Cooper Flagg starting at the 1, and then having PJ Washington and Klay Thompson next to the two bigs.
And I kind of want to get into that with you, because maybe that's the recipe for the slow starts. They've had back-to-back slow starts, and in both of those, they've been dress rehearsal games where you're seeing the guys that are going to be playing those minutes outside of Gafford and Kyrie, who are hurt right now, of what it will look like for their minutes in the regular season. And I don't think that means effort. Like when I say dress rehearsal, it isn't like, hey, we're trying everything. We're throwing all the pins and needles out, and we're trying to win this game no matter what. I think it just means as far as how many minutes guys are playing, that's how I interpreted it. You saw Anthony Davis get ramped up into the 30s, playing into the fourth quarter. But I want to look at that starting lineup. Going into when Cooper Flagg was drafted, one of the first things Jason Kidd said about him was we want to make him uncomfortable. We want to put the ball in his hands. And all of us were like, okay, I can get behind him being somewhat of a playmaker. That's going to help. You're going to be without Kyrie. We don't know what D'Lo is going to be yet as far as how helpful he's going to be to the team. So having Cooper Flagg with the ball in his hands, number 1 overall pick, we've seen him do it at Duke, excuse me. We were excited for it. I assumed that would be as a secondary guy, even a guy just when we're swinging the ball around, when the ball's in his hands, it doesn't get stuck. He's not just a catch and shoot guy. He's going to be able to create. And we've seen some of that. But over the last 2 games, it feels like Jason Kidd is, I don't know if he's just experimenting, if he does think this is the best lineup, but with Cooper Flagg in the starting lineups, the emphasis is going to be, hey, we obviously have a super tall lineup, but our defense is going to be impeccable. We're taking D'Angelo Russell off and putting PJ Washington on, which means Cooper Flagg is guarding guards. We saw him guard Keontae George. We've seen him guard other small guards out there. I just want your overall takeaway from the Cooper Flagg starting, D'Angelo Russell going with the second unit, kind of the flow. You're hoping for good defense and mismatches, but right now their first halves and starter games have not been great with that lineup.
Yeah, I think for the most part, you can kind of look at it as a little bit of a philosophical question for what your options are. If you want a little bit more playmaking and scoring, you can put D'Angelo Russell out there. But I think what we saw, especially against Charlotte with LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller and Miles Bridges, that having that starting backcourt be D'Angelo Russell and Klay Thompson, you give up defensively what you ideally don't want to give up, of course. Like containing dribble penetration matters a ton when you're playing multiple bigs. I think that's where I kind of defer from a lot of the commentary, whether it's like, coaches or players, is that they seem to like view it, rightfully so to an extent, where it's like, okay, I can get in the ball and I have shot blockers behind me that can clean it up. But to me, with the way NBA teams are hunting threes, I don't think you can necessarily view it like that, because they want to get by, off the dribble, and they would love for you to be slow and really like packing the paint and giving up spray out threes where they can just get clean looks throughout the night, knowing that they're not going to get a tight contest. I think that's where you have a potential identity problem if you don't have a strong defensive backcourt with two bigs out on their or out on the floor. So I think where you swap that out, you have PJ Washington out there who can get into the ball, provide more length, and is a more talented defender than D'Angelo Russell. Now Cooper Flagg is also in a position too in that lineup where he's guarding, like a Gabe Vincent. He has to run around screens, chase smaller guys around. So there's pros and cons to both styles. And I think really what we learned is that we have a lot more to learn and a lot to figure out about this team. There's more questions than answers from, the attempt to find answers, I guess, if you will, where even like just their general like shot selection approach, I think has contrasted kind of game to game. Like in Utah against a drop coverage team with, Yusuf Nurkic at center, one of those like weaker defensive centers in the league, they were able to get over 50 3-point attempts, and they were able to get to the free throw line over 30 times. Like that is, I'm not sure how often a team has even managed to accomplish that. I know it was preseason, but like that was pretty impressive, even though the shots weren't falling, for the Mavs at much of a strong clip in that game. That was still like kind of the ideal, if you will, or close to ideal sort of distribution that they're looking for, is they want to dominate the free throw line and they want to keep pace with other teams that are getting a lot of threes up, especially knowing that, but them being big, they might give up threes on the other end. So they have to keep pace there. But they want to be a team that plays very fast, be bigger than the other team, impose their will in the paint as much as they can without giving up, that 3-point differential. And I think the way they're going to do that with the lineup combinations, there's going to be a lot of pros and cons as they're trying to solve that puzzle. And that's why they assembled such a veteran coaching staff to be able to solve all of those problems. But I do think I like with Cooper Flagg in the backcourt with PJ Washington, at least over the last couple of seasons, they've gradually had PJ Washington handle the ball more and be someone that can get the offense going as well as an initiator. So it's not just purely Cooper Flagg, but I do have some questions when other teams want to, kind of in that playoff style defense, like an OKC, get like full court pressure. Like, how does that look? What are the relief mechanisms there? How do they handle that pressure if a really aggressive, ball pressure team wants to really get into the ball and make, Cooper or PJ uncomfortable without that more, regular ball handler to kind of steady things up?
I want to put a pause on the questions that we have for this team and maybe some of the negatives or even positives. We'll talk about them more holistically. I do want to give a second to, this is where we'd put a shout out right here. If we had a sponsor, boom, we'd say your name right there, but we don't yet. So if you want to sponsor the show, boom, jump in before it's too late. But I do want to give some positives. Ryan Nembhard and Dereck Lively, I think, were winners in the preseason. Mainly Nembhard, because Lively, I'll go Lively because he's quicker. Dereck Lively, I feel like, doesn't get enough credit for the things that he did. And I was one that was like, is he just a merchant of Luka Doncic? We saw how well he was on the way to being an all-star. Maybe he's going to shoot the three, doing the things in the finals. Everyone's ready to crown him. Then last year, some injuries. Luka gets traded. Then when he comes back, he doesn't really look right. He's kind of out of place. We didn't really know what to feel with him. Now, it's just the preseason, but I liked what I saw from Dereck Lively, his cutting, his paint presence, finishing around the rim. And I know there's been a thing on Twitter, and I'll just say the quiet part out loud. The jump hook, man, it looks good. He hit back-to-back ones. I really liked what I saw from Dereck Lively as far as paint presence and being that mobile big, because he's not just going to stand on the block and put his hand up all day. He's going to move around. He's going to do some DHOs. He's going to catch it at the elbow. He's going to run the fast break. I mean, the fast break is where him and Ryan Nembhard would connect on like 4 or 6 points, just them two. So I really liked what I saw from Lively. And then got to give kudos to Ryan Nembhard. Been a believer since he was undrafted, and they brought him over here, had him in Vegas. We've seen him in the offseason. We've seen him in the preseason. I don't know if there's very many negatives that me and you can come up with on this podcast right now to say about our boy. Like, it feels like Nembhard has found ways to make all of his minutes impactful, whether it's moving without the ball, whether it's setting up teammates, which most of you guys at home are able to see that. It just seems like he's making all the right plays. I think other than his first game, he's been like a plus 10 in every time he's been on the floor when you look at the box score at the end of the game. And he's playing 10, 12, 8 minutes a game. It's not like he's playing that much. And we saw Jason Kidd speak glowingly about him, saying he's going to run more with the first team. This was before the Lakers game. He's going to run more with the first team. And then after the game, even said, like, I don't find it hard for him to be getting minutes. So I have to ask you, Grant, about those two players, and then more specifically about Nembhard. Does he find himself on this Mavericks roster? It feels like he's done all the right things for the Mavs and all the opportunities he's gotten.
Yeah, let's start with Ryan Nembhard. I think, first of all, like, one of the most impressive things about him, just how steady and just the great use of pace that he has. He's older for a rookie, but still,
he's a
as a
true
young
point
player,
guard.
he's still showing really great control as a point guard, being able to force defenses to react to him when he's attacking, and then using that to his advantage to open up his teammates. I think the best stat I've found so far, just looking into it, is he's dished out 20 assists, and I think he's only turned it over twice in the preseason. It's just really
Jason Kidd likes that. He likes guys that control the pace, like how he did, and don't turn the ball over. So Ryan Nembhard and Jaden Hardy are kind of polar opposites. I'll let you figure out at home which one you think Jason Kidd is enjoying more.
Yeah, definitely. I think in terms of looking for that point guard presence, someone that can, get people organized and just, make plays for others, whether it's a big, as you mentioned, Dereck Lively running the floor, playing pick and roll, or even just finding an open shooter. I think he does a great job of reading where the NBA defensive rotations are developing, despite being new to the NBA. Like the low defender, he's manipulating the tag and getting the spray out pass, to a weak side shooter. That's impressive stuff for someone who's just now coming into the NBA.
Even had a little pocket pass, I think.
Yeah.
He had the alley-oops, the Lively look smooth. It looks as if Ryan Nembhard's been in the league a long time, and him and Lively have worked together. Both of your young rookies look like they've been in the league 3-4 years.
Yeah, definitely. I think Utah was such a great example of it. 12 assists, 1 turnover. And as you mentioned, there was a couple plays there where, obviously Utah is not the best defensive front court by any means, but at least it was still veteran players, Lauri Markkanen, Kevin Love, Yusuf Nurkic. He was able to freeze them and create those pocket passes, as you had mentioned, and just, really take advantage of, the teammates that he has around him. That's something that he gave credit to after that game, is that's just how he views it. Is he has a lot of great players around him. He just has to stay patient, be efficient, and, kind of just control the game and let them do the rest. And I think he's done a great job of that. And I think just a couple things to think about going forward for him. Obviously he's a smaller guard. So defensively, that's kind of why teams, I guess, if you will, overlooked him in a draft. And then also,
literally,
I did like that he went 1 for 2 against the Lakers from 3. That shooting consistency on catch and shoot jump shots will be really big, because if he can knock down shots consistently when he's spacing, then that's going to make it a lot easier for him to be a secondary ball handler alongside a star player as well too, whether he's the one that's actually just running the offense, or if he's getting off the ball and they're interchanging who's initiating the offense.
What are the chances Ryan Nembhard, I guess I got to ask this question first. We'll kind of get into the preseason takeaways overall. What is the chances that Ryan Nembhard is the first guard off the bench regular season game, barring, I think Max Christie would be the guy, but other than Max Christie, D'Angelo Russell starts, I presume. What are the chances that that first point guard off the bench is Ryan Nembhard?
Well, I think it's definitely right now tough to tell just because, I think assuming D'Angelo Russell starts, that would definitely put it in a different position. But we also still might have a situation where Cooper Flagg and PJ Washington and Klay are kind of starting as that perimeter, trio.
Do you
Depending
like
on
that?
what Jason Kidd decides.
Do you want that for regular season game number one? I'm fine with them working through that kinks and Cooper Flagg being that guy eventually and being a point forward and all that great stuff. But I don't know if I want it game one. That's a lot of pressure on Coop. I'd rather let him be the 3. PJ is going to play starter minutes really anyways, close games, yada, yada, yada. But I want D'Lo, Ryan Nembhard. I want a point guard out there where Coop's not having to worry about that. And that, at least in the starting lineup at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of benefits to having a veteran guard out there that can, kind of take the brunt of the pressure and allow Cooper Flagg to kind of play more within the flow. I guess it really is a matter of preference for the coaching staff if they want to just crank up the pressure early to really test Cooper and have him take full advantage of these opportunities while Kyrie is out, and then maybe see if he's someone that stepping aside into that secondary ball handler role next to Kyrie. They can really build that rhythm and already have him super comfortable with initiating NBA offense. So I guess it's kind of a push-pull thing where it's like what gets wins.
You're a win now team.
Today.
You're a win now team. You have AD and Kyrie who are in their mid 30s right now. Klay as well.
No, definitely. I guess you're solving that problem of obviously winning today versus how soon do you think he can really figure it out within the rookie season? And does that align with a potential future return timetable for Kyrie as well? So, but I do think there's a reason why they signed D'Angelo Russell as well too, to help, cover up any potential guard deficiencies while Kyrie is out and then provide extra depth when he is back. So taking advantage of having that type of player on the mid-level exception, I wouldn't, oppose that by any means. I think that gets you into a different question that I feel could be interesting is if you have D'Angelo Russell start, now does that mean necessarily you want Klay to start or PJ Washington to start on that perimeter next to Cooper Flagg? Because I think the defensive limitations when you have a D'Angelo Russell and Klay Thompson backcourt, just people that I've talked to, scouts in particular, they have a lot of concerns about how that backcourt can execute. But if you are to swap,
Blake's not a scout. I have concerns as well.
Well, there you go. So what do you think? Do you think, would you prefer, if you are starting D'Angelo Russell, would you prefer a PJ Washington in there? But also, as we previously discussed, you even have the option as well of, someone like a Max Christie if you want as well too. So what do you think would be the ideal starting lineup if you were to pick it for game one?
I've been on the record at 105 through the fan where I do Fan After Dark with Fred Davis 7 to 11 every day. I've been on the record, nothing against Klay. Personally, he's actually one of the first NBA players I ever met. At my very first NBA game, he was one of the people I met. So it's nothing against him personally. Great on the Mavs. I don't think he should still be a starter with the Mavericks. I think he is a phenomenal shooter and other teams still respect his spacing? I do think that. So don't let me get it twisted. But with what you have on your team right now, with D'Angelo Russell not being able to defend well, and then having Klay, who's going to shoot 38% from 3 and hit a couple threes, 3-4 a game, or I should say 4-5 a game, excuse me. I don't think you're getting enough defense to make up for that right now. I would much rather have Max Christie out there and or PJ Washington. Max Christie's my first choice. I think he's shown a lot of good promise in the preseason. I love how he's always moving. I love the active motor. And you're going to need guys like that because you don't have very many guards that are just going to be sprinting low. I think Cooper Flagg is kind of a hybrid with that as well. But having Max Christie and Cooper Flagg just causes so much chaos on the defensive end in a good way against opposing teams that I think you'll reap the benefits from a lot quicker than D'Angelo Russell and Klay Thompson being kind of your guard stoppers, if you will. I don't know if D'Angelo Russell is the perfect option at the 1, but it's really all you got right now. Stopgap. I'm for it. I'm not really going to spend too much time roasting D'Angelo Russell. He is who he is. We know we didn't bring him in here for defense, so I think you have to complement that with we need a good active defender next to him, and I think that could be Max Christie. I think that could be PJ Washington, like you said. And now that we see they're comfortable putting him in the starting lineup, they're tinkering with who comes out. I just feel like Klay Thompson is going to get the seniority. You brought me in here. Why am I coming off the bench? Uncomfortable conversations. And we know Jason Kidd's the ego massager. Do you think they could even pull that off where he said, Klay, you're coming off the bench for Max Christie?
Honestly, I think if they can make PJ Washington come off the bench with that extension that he got and him being much younger, I feel like it should be on the table if that's what they feel is best.
Okay. I hear you. I'm all for Klay being on the team. I just don't know if he fits the best with the starting lineup right now. But kind of what your overall thoughts about the preseason as far as from a defensive side. We thought the Mavs defense would be dominant. And outside of Gafford, everyone that's going to play in the first half of the season, Brandon Williams, Exum. Outside of those guys, I didn't really see dominant defense. I'm not saying it was the worst defense I've ever seen, unless it's the first half versus Lakers, but I didn't see dominant defense. And for this team to succeed, you're going to need a top 5 defense and a league average offense. I would assume that the trust and the foundation, the leadership for the Dallas Mavericks, Nico Harrison and Dumont and Jason Kidd are assuming top 3 defense, top 5 defense, and league average offense, and we can be a championship contender. And I would agree with that sentiment. But even though it's the preseason, I didn't see dominant defense. Do you think that changes and they flip the switch come regular season game number 1 against the Spurs?
Well, I think there's a couple factors at play overall, like kind of just to think about. I think number 1, the tone setter that you're looking for is Anthony Davis, and he clearly was playing his way back into form, back into shape after not being able to do anything for, I think it was about 8 weeks or something like that, 6 to 8 weeks, whatever it was after his eye surgery. And then he had the ramped up minutes as we had talked about. So I think, him getting that opportunity to play 32 minutes in the preseason finale, I think you're hoping that, he's able to, cover ground, be more of an imposing force like you usually tend to see him be when the game, really matters. Because again, I guess it is also still preseason, of course, as well too. That's another factor of it. But that's probably where you need it to start, is for Anthony Davis to set the tone. But I think there's some nuances within it. Is that I think he's still. Well, I guess not just he, but Dereck Lively, I think they're getting used to playing with each other still.
Yeah.
Like, I think I see things out there where it feels like they're approaching it like they're not necessarily having help on the back line. Like, they're kind of playing off of, offensive threats when they're guarding actions in ways they don't necessarily have to. Like, they can get a little more into the ball because they do have that help on the backside from, each other as a weak side help defender. I think they're going to have to get more comfortable with kind of making those determinations. And there are times as well where one of them is kind of staying in a rim protection position while the other one's not getting out aggressively to a shooter. Like, it almost seems like there's a little bit of a, I guess it's not to be dramatic, but a little bit of a stepping on the toes of like who's kind of that rim protector sometimes, because they're not used to, like Dereck Lively especially. I don't think he's used to playing next to a guy like Anthony Davis, where he's the one like, all right, get out and go on the perimeter and, make that closeout, things of that nature. So I think that'll take some time. And so I think that eats into the potential a little bit of that top 5, top 3, whatever it may be, defensive goal, because they're still going to have to get reps and really get used to playing next to each other on that end of the floor. And they're meant to be the ones where they're the calling card, where it's like, well, we have 2 elite bigs that are shot blockers that we can really, rely on to be the anchors of our defense. And then on top of that, while that's going on, you still have to figure out who's even starting on the perimeter and building that chemistry and continuity, just executing as a team defense in your scheme, but also finding the right combination where you're not giving up too much dribble penetration by who's starting at the cost of not giving up too much offensive firepower as well. So that's where I feel like there's plenty to still figure out with training camp. That's why with Jason Kidd talking about training camp, he says some people view it as like the first week only. That's how they talk about it. But we view it as something where it goes all the way through the 21st. Like, we're going to use every single day to figure everything out before that first game, the day before. So that there's plenty to really sort through. But that's kind of just my initial thought, where those two bigs, and you can throw Daniel Gafford in there as well, of course, when he's in the mix back from injury. They're going to have to really figure out how to play together when they are sharing the floor, those responsibilities, how they're approaching guarding actions, all of that good stuff, where I feel like they really weren't able to do that last year much because everyone was kind of dealing with injuries. So they weren't really able to guard in space that great. And they didn't even get that many games to even try with everyone being so injured.
Yeah, I think this Dallas Mavericks team has a lot of questions to figure out, roles and whatnot. I want to kind of finish the pod out with this. Tell me some of your favorite lineup combinations that you saw out there, and then what you think you'll see in regular season game one. I'll start us off. I believe my favorite one, I'm not saying it's the one that's going to be fourth quarters, and the one I enjoyed watching the most was Dereck Lively at the 5, PJ Washington at the 4, Cooper Flagg at the 3, Max Christie at the 2, and Ryan Nembhard at the 1. And you can swap out Anthony Davis or Dereck Lively, but pretty much the non-double bigs and Max and Ryan Nembhard in for Klay and D'Angelo Russell. They're fast. Everyone can handle the rock, other than like Lively, obviously, if he's in that one. Everyone can bring the ball up the court. There's a lot of dribble handoffs. There's a lot of movement. There's a lot of backdoor screens, which I like a lot. I love that movement because I think a lot of these players, they're not used to playing this brand of basketball. I know people listening might be like, they did that last year, Blake, but a lot of these guys that are playing, even though they returned 13 of the 15 guys, didn't play last year, didn't play heavy minutes. This is their first full going into the season. We were playing with no Luka, obviously, and no Kyrie for half of the season. It's going to have to be team basketball. And I feel like that combination, which I don't think is going to be some heavy combinations, getting a bunch of minutes, but I liked seeing that one. The double bigs to me is going to take some getting used to from a viewing point. And like you just said, from them playing together on both ends of the floor. And I just like what I've seen from Max Christie and Ryan Nembhard. They give you a lot of juice. They give you energy. And it feels like Klay and D'Lo are just, those veterans are going to give that presence because Ryan Nembhard and Max Christie are going to be up and down, and Klay and D'Lo are probably going to be right here the whole time, for better or worse. So that's kind of my takeaways. What lineup combinations did you maybe like or dislike?
Yeah, I think honestly the Anthony Davis at the 5 lineups were interesting just because I think it was easier for him to get, into the paint, and he's so good in the paint offensively that like when he's not like taking so many jump shots and he's more able to impose his will inside. I think that's just so hard for other teams to stop. And really, honestly, the pieces around that interchangeably, to be honest, don't really matter that much from that regard because he's able to, be a rim protection presence on the other end as well. And I also think on the flip side, I also really liked, as you said, the same like 3-man combo where Dereck Lively was at the 5 and then PJ Washington next to Cooper Flagg, at that 3-4 spot as well. I really like that because for all the reasons you mentioned, they're really fast. I thought they were able to spread the floor really well and attack closeouts like on redrives. Like it was a lot of like things you would like to see in modern offense. Like maybe ideally at the 1 or 2, whatever it may be, you'd have like a more dynamic shot creator if that's like an identity you're going.
A Kyrie Irving?
Yeah, like a Kyrie Irving. Exactly like that. Where if you're really going to like seriously utilize that for like long stretches, that could be really interesting. But I also think like for the reason I found it interesting is I felt like Dereck Lively as well was a little more like decisive in how he was playing offensively. Cause I think throughout preseason, like just to get into him a little bit more on the offensive end, I think they were experimenting with different approaches where, against Charlotte, it felt like we were seeing him a ton operating in like delay dribble handoffs up top. Like he was like constantly orchestrating offense. Like it felt like it was almost like an intentional thing to really like rep that out while Anthony Davis was just spacing the floor for the most part. And that was a game where I think fans were partly like, what is going on? This is not a top 5, 15 or 5, 10, 15 player that we're used to seeing. Why is he only shooting jump shots? Like it felt almost like it was an intentional, like scripted thing where they were like really trying to rep that out. And then second half, of course, Anthony Davis in that game got the ball inside and scored like a quick double figure amount of points in the third quarter, reminding, what Anthony Davis does best in the paint and inside the 3-point line. But, long story short, I think going into these last couple of games, they were more intentional about having Dereck Lively not being the orchestrator of those dribble handoffs and having Anthony Davis do it while having Lively more in that dunker spot area. And I think with Lively, something, you mentioned the hook shots, like in the post when he's able to get those opportunities. He was really effective there. But I think what really stood out to me as well is just kind of what goes back to the draft when he was coming through. People really liked his ability to leap off of 2 feet and just finish. Like, he has some really powerful reverse finishes where you're like, just get it to him in the paint and he'll just do the rest. Like, sounds cliche, but he's pretty powerful leaping off 2 feet. And I feel sorry for the rim, the nails keeping the rim together.
He had a couple last night. He had a couple of those last night where he finished around the rim. I think Dereck Lively it's going to come again where he's underrated, and then people will catch the wave. And it's going to be interesting when the landlord comes back, when Gafford comes back. How is he going to fit into all of this? We're already saying it feels like it's too many bigs. We want just one out there. We haven't even talked about Daniel Gafford, but we got plenty of time to talk about this Dallas Mavericks season. It is a long one. That was me and Grant recapping the preseason. So if you didn't have a chance to see it, you didn't have a chance to lock in, you can just listen to our podcast Monday and Friday. Or I said Monday and Friday. Monday and Thursday. Every Monday and Thursday. We'll film that day. It'll be posted that day. We'll be on Twitter, YouTube, Spotify podcasts, Apple Podcasts, newspaper. Are we doing a newspaper?
I don't have my printer set up.
No newspaper from Grant, but we'll have you locked and loaded. And like I said, Grant is going to all 82 games, home, away. He'll be there, so he'll have all the unbeaten coverage. Stay tuned for Monday's episode, because on Monday, 3 days from now, we're going to be recapping some of the roster moves that are made around the league that affect the Mavericks. If the Mavericks make any roster moves, we know we're trying to get Ryan Nembhard maybe to a standard contract. Is Dennis Smith Jr. going to make the roster? Is Dante Exum, Caleb Martin? All those questions should be answered by Monday, or we should be a little bit closer to that. And then as far as the injury report, we'll give you all that as well and get you guys locked and loaded. One more episode before regular season basketball starts for your Dallas Mavericks. That's going to be 6 days from now. Wednesday, was that the 21st, 20th, 22nd?
I believe 22nd for the game, yeah.
That's why I got Grant. 22nd versus Spurs at home, 7-5 Wemby for 7-3 Lively. Who will win it? We'll have to wait and see, but we'll see you guys on Monday. Appreciate you guys for getting all the way through the pod, and deuces.